Making headlines this hour, hundreds of people gathers in the capital Male, echoing calls for an independent state of Palestine and to end the genocide in Gaza. The Minister of Defense Mohammed Ghassan Maumoon calls on the Maldives National Defense Force personnel to always put the country before personal interests. And the Navy ship Dharmawanta, donated by Turkey to the Maldives, is officially handed over to the Maldives National Defense Force and commissioned into its fleet. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Idham Naim. Hundreds of people gathers in the capital Male, echoing calls for an independent state of Palestine and to end the genocide in Gaza. People of all ages carrying placards and banners to voice their support for Palestine gathered at Mafanu Turf Grounds in the west of Male, called on the international community. The nationwide movement was organized by several civil society organizations led by the International Aid Campaign. The movement, part of the global Sumud flotilla campaigning to break the illegal siege on Gaza by sea, open a humanitarian corridor, and end the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people, was mirrored in around 50 islands across the Maldives, according to the organizers. Several cabinet ministers, senior government and state officials, along with prominent religious scholars, also joined the gathering, putting up a united front against the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land. Two Palestinians who had suffered Israeli atrocities shared their experiences at the gathering. The mass gathering in Male captured global attention after it was covered by Al Jazeera news channels. The gathering was held less than a day after the Maldives strongly condemned the remarks made by the Prime Minister of the Israeli occupation government regarding the so-called vision of Greater Israel and expressed its firm rejection of the settlement and expansionist plans reflected in those statements. For 18 months, the Maldives has consistently ranked among the most vocal nations on the Palestinian issue, especially the genocide in Gaza, issuing a substantial number of statements across international forums. The government has backed its rhetoric with a policy action, actively participating in 3 legal proceedings against Israel at the International Court of Justice, while also imposing an official ban on entry for individuals holding Israeli passports, an unprecedented move underscoring its firm stance. Former President Maumoon Abdul Qayyum urges all to do everything possible to provide assistance to the Palestinian people. He makes the call in a message shared on social media in response to the ongoing attacks by the extremist Jewish state on Gaza. On 15th August, massive rallies were held across the country to call for an end to the siege of Gaza and the delivery of humanitarian aid. The rallies were attended by a large number of people who chanted slogans against the Jewish state and called for an end to the massacre in Palestine. In an audio message shared on social media, President Maumoon said, "The courage and determination of the Palestinian people have not wavered in the face of brutal aggression, relentless bombings, injustice, and enforced starvation by the Zionist state." Drawing inspiration from their resilience, he said the Sumud Flotilla Coalition is preparing to send vessels from 44 countries to break the siege of Gaza and deliver aid. President Maumoon stressed that although the Maldives is a small nation, it has consistently advocated for the rights of Palestinians and called for justice. He said the Maldives is proud to join international efforts to end the occupation of Gaza. The Sumud flotilla will attempt to enter Gaza by sea and will be one of the largest such efforts to date. He called on everyone to do what they can do to end the occupation and provide assistance to the Palestinian people. The Sumud flotilla movement has been active since 2007, campaigning against the Jewish state's blockade of Gaza by sea, air and land. A total of 44 countries, including the Maldives, are taking part. The Maldives' role in alliance is to provide a pre-boarding training to ships departing from Indonesia. Azad Ahmad, Director of Media and Public Relations at the International Aid Campaign and a leading member of the organizing committee, said the Maldives' participation is highly valued by other countries. He added that many have praised President Dr. Mohamed Moise's decision to ban Israeli passport holders from entering the country. The Minister of Defense, Mohammad Ghassan Mamoun, calls on the Maldives National Defense Force personnel to always put the country before personal interests. The minister makes the appeal while speaking at the handover and commissioning ceremony of the Turkey-donated naval ship Darmonta. In his address, the defense minister said President Dr. Mohamed Moise's main objective since taking office has been to safeguard the country's independence and sovereignty. He said to date he has taken several significant decisions in pursuit of this goal. The minister said the vessel is the largest military ship in Maldivian naval history. The minister further said the vessel would play a key role in protecting the country's independence, maintaining its waters and safeguarding its resources. The minister noted that in 1980, when the Navy was first established, MNDF was working with very limited resources. The defense minister reiterated his call for service above self and assured the public that the armed forces would always protect the sovereignty and independence of the country. Speaking at the ceremony, Chief of Defense Force Major General Ibrahim Hilmi said the Turkey-donated vessel will greatly multiply MNDF's naval strength. Noting that it is the largest vessel to be added to the MNDF fleet, he said the President and MNDF's Commander-in-Chief, Dr. Mohamed Moise, attaches special importance to the development of the Army. He added that efforts are underway to acquire more naval vessels to the Maldives in the near future. The Chief of Defense Force said that the armed forces remain the strongest symbol of the Maldives' independence and are always prepared to make any sacrifice necessary to defend it. The Navy ship Darmonta, donated by Turkey to the Maldives, is officially handed over to the Maldives National Defense Force and commissioned into its fleet. The handover and commissioning ceremony took place at the Maldives Ports Limited area in Hurmale. The ceremony was graced by the President and Commander-in-Chief of MNDF, Dr. Mohamed Moise. The vessel was formally handed over by Turkish Navy Fleet Commander Admiral Kadir Yildiz to the Chief of Defense Force Major General Hilmi, who accepted it on behalf of the MNDF. A certificate of appreciation was also presented to the Turkish government by the Maldives. During the ceremony, President Dr. Moise unveiled the vessel's name, viewed a video presentation, and signed the ship's guest book. The national flag and the letter of service commencement was received by the vessel's commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Hassan Shinan. Darmonta is the largest vessel ever acquired by the MNDF and represents a major advancement in the Maldives' defense capabilities. It reinforces the nation's role as a responsible member of the international community committed to safeguarding the security in the Indian Ocean region. To mark its commissioning, a special drill was held on board by MNDF. Speaking at the ceremony, Commander Admiral Kadir Yildiz said he hopes military ties between the Maldives and Turkey will be further strengthened in the future. He added, the vessel symbolizes the close relationship between both countries. The Ministry of Defense in April this year announced the Turkish government's decision to donate a Dogon-class naval ship to the Maldives to support maritime security operations in Maldivian waters. According to the Ministry of Defense, the donation of the naval ship is the direct result of President and the Commander-in-Chief of the MNDF, Dr. Mohamed Moise's efforts to strengthen relations with friendly nations and advance his goal of doubling the National Coast Guard's capacity. The introduction of this vessel into the service will significantly help the Maldives to fulfill its role is a responsible member of the international community in ensuring the security and safety of the Maldivian waters as well as the wider Indian Ocean region. The ministry described the acquisition as an important step forward in ensuring that the members of the Defence Force are capable and competent in this capacity in line with the goal set out by the President. President Moise has prioritized the protection of the freedom, sovereignty, and independence of the Maldives since taking office. From the first day he took office, he began implementing policies to uphold these principles. Shortly after taking office, he inaugurated the MNDF Air Corps and introduced unmanned aerial vehicles. The Air Corps of the National Defence Force has also brought into service Turkish-made Bayraktar model unmanned combat aerial vehicles. The Maldives Medical Conference launches with a focus on treatments for the elderly, with the increasing proportion of the elderly in the population. The conference was attended by doctors from hospitals across the Maldives as well as other healthcare professionals. This marks the second such conference organized by the Maldives Medical Association. The theme of this year's conference is Geriatrics, Let's Talk Aged Care. The slogan reflects the importance of elderly care, which is very important for the Maldives and other countries facing similar demographic changes. The conference was launched by the President of the Maldives Medical Association, Dr. Ahmed Rashid. By 2030, 7% of the Maldives population is expected to be over 75 years of age. He added this figure is expected to increase to 10% by 2040. He stressed the need for the country to prepare in advance for such potential hits. He said 1 in every 10 people will be over 65 within the next 20 years. In addition, the doctor noted it is important to ensure early treatment and regular screening to prevent or delay physical disability. He said screenings or checkups can be conducted for the elderly. The two-day conference initiated by the Maldives Medical Association will discuss the need to improve the quality of care for the elderly and facilitate solutions. The Maldives Media Council receives 92 entries for its 12th annual Journalism Awards, reaffirming its role as the nation's principal authority on journalistic standards and recognition. This year's program spans 14 categories, reflecting the Council's commitment to acknowledging the breadth and depth of reporting across the country. Since its inception in 2014, the Journalism Award has served as a cornerstone of the Council's efforts to elevate professional practice within the country's media sector. The Council underscored its dedication to honoring exemplary work, reinforcing ethical conduct, and promoting the continuous refinement of editorial quality. Submissions for the current cycle pertain to works published during the preceding calendar year, a practice that has remained consistent throughout the award's history. The categories opened for consideration encompasses a wide range of journalistic disciplines, including investigative journalism, social affairs, political affairs, judicial and legal affairs, business and economic affairs, sports, photojournalism, documentary, feature report, lifestyle, entertainment and arts, environment and sustainable development, Promising Journalist Award, Journalist of the Year Award, and Best Production in Regional News Award. The head of the UN Commission on Latin America, Jose Manuel Salazar, urges the region's countries to diversify their export and import markets and to integrate their economies in response to US President Donald Trump's tariffs. Salazar, Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, told in an interview, quote, "Rather than replacing imports, I would use the word diversify," unquote. He said the organization is recommending that its members renew alliances both inside and outside the region, since diversification would require a long-term commitment. Salazar cited a trade agreement between Mercosur and the European Union that was finalized by negotiators in December after 2 decades of talks and is expected to get legislative approval soon. He also called for exploring trade and investment channels with Asian and African countries and for deepening regional integration in Latin America. The United Nations Commission supports economic development in Latin America and the Caribbean. Salazar, a Costa Rican economist, was in Mexico to attend a regional conference on women. He said progress has been made regarding women's inclusion in Latin America economies, but more still needs to be done to close the gap in labor market participation. U.S. President Donald Trump departs from Alaska's Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson after nearly 3 hours of direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The meeting did not yield an agreement to pause Moscow's war in Ukraine. During brief remarks to reporters, the two leaders said they had made progress on unspecified issues, but they offered no details and took no questions. It was not immediately clear whether the talks had produced meaningful steps towards a ceasefire in the deadliest conflict in Europe in 80 years, a goal that Trump had set at the outset. In brief remarks, Putin said he expected Ukraine and its European allies to accept the result of the US-Russia negotiations constructively and not to try to disrupt the emerging progress. There was no immediate reaction from Kiev. The anticlimactic end to the closely watched summit was in stark contrast to the pomp and circumstance with which it began. When Putin arrived at an Air Force base in Alaska, a red carpet awaited him, where Trump greeted Putin warmly as US military aircraft flew overhead. For Putin, the summit, the first between him and a US president since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, was already a big win regardless of its outcome. He can portray the meeting as evidence that years of Western attempts to isolate Russia have unraveled and that Moscow is retaking its rightful place at the high table of international diplomacy. Trump hopes a truce in the 3.5-year-old war that Putin started will bring peace to the region as well as bolster his credentials as a global peacemaker worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize. Putin is wanted by the International Criminal Court, accused of the war crime of deporting hundreds of children from Ukraine. Russia denies the allegations, and the Kremlin has dismissed the ICC warrant as null and void. Russia and the United States are not members of the court. Aerial footage taken on board a plane dropping aid over Gaza shows the scale of destruction in the area during Israel's 22-month offensive in a video released by Turkish state broadcaster TRT Haber. Several countries, including Jordan, the UAE, Egypt, and Canada, have been dropping aid over Gaza since Israel announced measures on July 27th to let more aid into Gaza in response to international outrage sparked by images of starving Gazans. Aid agencies say only a fraction of what they send is getting in. Israel strongly denies limiting aid supplies. Israel's most recent aggression and genocide in Gaza has been ongoing since the 7th of October 2023. According to Gaza Health Ministry, since then, Israel's offensive has killed nearly 60,000 people in Gaza, mostly civilians, reduced much of the enclave to ruins, and displaced nearly the entire population. Humanitarian aid groups have long been critical of airdrops of aid calling them more symbolic than truly effective when the scale of the need in Gaza requires open land routes for large amounts of aid to enter the enclave. Liverpool talisman Mo Salah and fellow forward Federico Chiesa strikes late goals as the Premier League champions began the defence of their title by beating Bournemouth 4-2 in a thriller on the opening night of the season at Anfield. On a bittersweet evening charged with emotion after the July death of Liverpool forward Diogo Jota, newcomer Hugo Ekitike bagged a goal on his league debut to put the hosts ahead after 37 minutes, and Cody Gakpo doubled the lead in the 49th. But Antoine Semenyo, who was the target of racist abuse in the first half that led to a pause in the game, pulled one back for the visitors in the 64th minute and completed a double 12 minutes later to rock Liverpool and shock the home fans. However, substitute Chiesa sent the Liverpool faithful away happy with an 88th minute strike after goalkeeper George Petrovic sweated away a ball into a box by Salah, who scored himself deep into added time to wrap up 3 points. An emotional Salah pointed to the heavens and flapped two hands to mimic Jota's shark goal celebration. He headed for the Kop stand after the final whistle and wiped away tears while applauding the fans who were singing Jota's song to the tunes of A Bad Moon Rising.
But the main emotion, I think, should be how impressive and powerful the tribute for Diogo was. So the banner that the Kop showed, the way You Never Walk Alone was sung, the way they sung is the word for Diogo before the game, in the first minute, after 20 minutes, in the end of the game. It was all so impressive and so powerful, and that's, I think, what my main emotion is after the game. And then there was even a game that ended in 4-2, where a lot of things happened.
The night started with an emotional minute's silence for Jota and his brother Andre Silva, who died in a car crash. Fans fought back tears as they sang You Will Never Walk Alone. The game was halted for several minutes after Bournemouth's Ghana international Semenyo reported the racist abuse. Film Dongji Rescue, a dramatic retelling of a little-known World War II maritime tragedy involving British prisoners of war and Chinese fishermen, receives its European premiere in London. Attended by the movie's makers and stars and descendants of the real-life POWs, the red carpet event coincided with the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, which marks the Allied victory over Japan and the end of World War II. While fighting in Europe ended in May 1945, the conflict with Japan continued until it signaled its intention to surrender on August 15 that year after atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States. Dongji Rescue is co-directed by Guang Hu, the filmmaker behind the 2024 Cannes Uncertain Regard winner Black Dog and Fei Zhenjiang. It is inspired by the real events surrounding the sinking of the Lisbon Maru, a Japanese freighter that was transporting 1,816 British POWs from Hong Kong when it was mistakenly torpedoed by a US submarine near Zhoushan Archipelago in the East China Sea on October 1, 1942. While Japanese troops were evacuated from the ship, the British POWs were locked inside its holds. Spotting smoke, dead bodies and wreckage from the sinking vessel, fishermen from nearby islands set out to help, rescuing 384 survivors. More than 800 POWs lost their lives on board the Lisbon Maru, drowned in the sea or were killed by Japanese soldiers as they tried to escape. Dongji Rescue is a fictional account of the events and centers on two brothers, Ah Bi and Ah Dang, played by Zhu Yilong and Wu Lei, who are ostracized for their mysterious origins by the inhabitants of Dongji, a small rocky island occupied by Japan. With more than 40% of the film taking place underwater, the project was a technical feat for its makers. Large-scale sets were built on location at Dongji Island, and the ship was recreated at full scale. Pioneering oceanic visual effects and robotic were used for its underwater scenes. The shoot was also physically demanding for the actors, who had learned to hold their breath for extended periods while filming underwater. Dongji Rescue, which opened in cinemas in China on August 8th, will be released in the UK, Ireland and the United States on August 22nd and in Europe theaters from August 29th. That concludes news for now. Thank you for watching PSM News. Have a good day.
ಮಗುಮಚ್ಚೆ ಸವಾಲ್ಕ ನುದುನು ಎಮ್ಮೆ ಫಹು ತಿಜಹುನಿ ಮುಳಿಮೂನ್ಗ ಬೆಂಡೇಜೋಳಾಕನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ತಹುಗ ನುವದಿಹ ಇನ್ಸತ್ತ ಮೀಹು ಮರವನಿ ಬೋಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ಯಾನಿ ಅಕ್ಸ ಸೈಕಲ್ ದುಬಾರು ಹೆಲ್ಮೆಟ್ ವಾಲ
PSM ಗೆ ಟಿವಿ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ತಕ ರೇಡಿಯೋ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ತ ಮಿಹಾರು